Welcome back to the Tide Deer Hanger. This is Mike. Today I want to talk to you about update number 3 to the Mattel Creations Eternia. And it is funded. It is backed. A little over 8,000 right now. And so kind of exciting. Now, we've seen momentum die off, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But they had a live stream today, kind of a big event, and some interesting stuff. As you can see in this picture, they have the Mattel Creations one on the right, way in the back there. They have a vintage one. We do some vintage comparisons. They did quite a few of these. I captured several that I thought showed the most difference from the vintage to the modern one. It looks so similar, but yet they made some enhancements, so it's pretty cool. So we'll talk about that. They made an announcement about a 10,000 backer tier. Basically, what's going to happen at 10,000? Yes, we get KECLAR, but something else is going to happen. I'll talk about that. And I'll give you a quick update on my display space. Yes, I'm working on a display space. Why go through all this trouble and hassle, financial hassle, to get this thing and not display it? So, got a lot of things in the works. I'll talk about that and more coming up.
Let's take a trip back in time. The original Eternia playset was released in 1986, and I'm referring over my shoulder here because we actually have one back here, which is so awesome. Why is that the holy grail for He-Man collectors?
Starting out, I do want to say that Mattel did a much better job presenting this than pretty much anything I've seen from Hasbro. This presentation was fantastic. I enjoyed watching it. The host had a high level of energy and was really tied into this, asked a lot of great questions. I don't think she even is much of an expert on Motu, but yet asked a lot of great questions and seemed to have a lot of fun with it. So with that, getting into this project is $550 plus they're going to charge you $57 shipping in the US. Outside the US, there's much crazier prices, people paying up to $1,200. So just depending on where you live, is it worth it for you? It's up to you. Vintage ones sell anywhere between $1,200 incomplete to $16,000 and it's sealed in the package and AFA graded and all that kind of stuff. And as you can see here, we have the modern one versus the vintage one. So with the quick details out of the way, it is funded, so it's getting made no matter what. So if you order it, you will get it. There's no will it come in? No. But here is them showing they bought a vintage one. Now, they did not want to disclose the amount that they paid for a vintage one. They bought it on the open market, and they got it pretty close to complete. As you look right now, I don't see the chains on this thing. I don't think they have the chains for this. In fact, looking at this over and over, I've been a little obsessed with this playset myself, and I see a lot of missing parts and pieces on their playset. So their vintage one isn't even complete, in my opinion. They said it was, but I don't think it is. So looking at it still, this is probably one of the couple of playsets that sold in the last month. They're like, oh, we might as well have a vintage one to show them. But then again, they probably needed one to model after anyway. But still, let's kind of get into what they did with the comparisons with this. So here is kind of I thought this was an interesting picture, so I snatched it up because it looks pretty good, showing all the parts and pieces that are going to come with it, more or less. And so that's interesting. They did kind of flash a whole lot of part pictures, but not one picture that showed everything. So this one just kind of showed encompassing of a lot of parts and pieces that are coming. So they did talk about the Moat Monster and, of course, how it was originally carved in. One question that did not get answered that I wanted answered was, will you still have the carved-in Moat Monster underneath that drawbridge and a Moti, or is it less detail underneath there? I'm curious if they left the carved-in Moat Monster and we get this Moat Monster, because it wasn't unlocked, so there was a chance that we wouldn't get him. So is that still carved in? I don't know. That's something I wanted to know. Nobody asked, or if they did, I missed it. It's an hour long. Now, I'm not very good at sitting through an hour, so I did jump a bit. And so until I saw some action and started listening to the action. But so here's some action. So one thing is that once they hit 10,000, we're going to get KECLAR. And yes, we already knew we were going to get KECLAR. But if we hit 10,000, everybody who backs it's going to get King Grayskull. And so I'm perfectly fine with everybody getting a King Grayskull. But I have mixed feelings about it because I jumped through some financial hurdles, and I did put a lot of things on hold, and I put my wife out with a lot of stuff, a lot of problems. Quickly, the credit card I was going to put it on was going to be maxed out. It wouldn't have been a problem 2 years ago, but in the current extremely bad financial economic conditions we're in right now, that credit card would have declined this payment because they no longer let me go over my limit. And I used to go over the limit all the time in 2020, 2021, it wasn't a problem. But now it is, especially with what's going on now. So I put it on my wife's credit card, and I put it on my wife's credit card. That actually caused that payment to be, of course, $2,000 more than usual. And when I went to pay it, they sent a check instead of an electric payment. So I'm still waiting for that to pay. So I'm just sitting here waiting. Is it going to be today, next week, the week after? I mean, I'm waiting for that to go through. So I've jumped through some hurdles to get this King Grayskull figure, which sounds silly because the superior version of it is sitting at Target right now, going on clearance. But I jumped through some hurdles to get this. And so with that, now everybody's going to get it. I could have waited. I could have been part of a payment plan. I could have made it easier on my family and myself and all this kind of stuff. And I did. It's not that I don't have the money, but it's the issue that I'm being prudent with my finances and passing on a lot of purchases to do this. So it is a little frustrating, but I'm happy everybody gets it. But we still have to hit 10,000 for everybody to get King Grayskull, or it's just the early backers from the first week. Okay, next up, they have this new cannon. Now, the new cannon for the new playset actually is missile firing, projectile firing, which, of course, for me, I think it's kind of cool that the old one didn't have it, the new one does have it. Now, I don't know about the rangefinder. It looks like that little clear rangefinder folds up and down. So, I'm always scared that I'm going to lose those little projectiles. I hope they come with like an extra one. A lot of times playsets, a lot of old vintage Transformers came with 3 or 4 projectiles because they knew you'd lose one. So, hopefully this does the same. So it looks pretty cool, and it's supposed to be just a little bit bigger. To me in this picture it looks the same, but some of the angles it did look a little bit bigger. So then we get into this feature here, and so what they wanted to say was in the vintage one, first of all, the jaw line, it's much taller so that you can accommodate Masterverse figures or classics. And the other thing is that the jaw was independent of the arms, and now it's all one mechanism. So the arms collapse, or they kind of give you a big cat hug, and the mouth opens at the exact same time. So that's something new that's added in, a new mechanism. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if that down the road that fails, or that's going to be a failure point, that it wasn't an issue on the vintage one because it opened and closed on its own. But still, it's kind of cool. It sounds cool in theory. I just hope the design holds up on that. But it still has the same kind of arm closing thing. They did say the arms close at a different angle. So here it is showing closed, and I didn't capture the exact second that they were both closed, but it does show like it closes at a different angle. So still pretty cool overall. Cool features. It's nice to have features. And so when I get into my whole discussion of my setup, then I will talk about thinking about how to utilize these features and display with those features. Next up, so they wanted to show that the vintage one just had like a little lever, and the new one's going to have some orb with it. So there's a big difference between it now. This, they didn't have a good side-by-side, so I'm just going to kind of let you take some time to look and see. Yep, it's just like a little blue nubbins that you move back and forth. And now I'm going to introduce you to the orb. Well, I guess, I forgot, I didn't catch the young lady's name, but she introduces us to the orb. And so it looks kind of nice, looks kind of cool. Actually, it looks like some orb that goes with the fire emblem guy in the Dungeons and Dragons. He comes with an orb too that looks similar to that. But anyway, pretty cool though that they enhance this set as they go. And although it's the same feature, it's much fancier looking. It's a little bit better for what's now a lower price point. Now in this picture you can get a better look at the orb, and you can also kind of see what she's got going on. So the drawbridge slides up as you push down on the right gargoyle looking thing. So that's kind of cool too. And I did watch a video, Scuba Pete, and saw all of these. I need to go watch his again now that I've seen what this one does and kind of see what his does. Scuba Pete did a really good job on their Chasing 80s toys. So pretty fantastic. Probably the best Eternia review on YouTube right now. So great job, Scuba Pete, right there. But I want to go back and watch that again and compare all these. But yeah, it pops up. Cool little feature. Then we get over here to showing, okay, King Grayskull is going to be shown as a demonstrator on what you can do with one of these monorail things when you're not using them. So this thing, so this is 2 of the monorail pieces. There's 3 monorail pieces. There is a spaceship looking thing, the gel cage looking thing, and then there's this which looks like you're kind of in flight mode. But you can connect this one that looks like it's in flight mode to this, and it turns into a gunner station. So it's something like, hey, what are we going to do with these extra parts when they're just laying around and you're not using them? Well, let's actually use them. Let King Grayskull or anybody. That'd probably be a man-at-arms place to be too. find it quite ingenious that they come up with these kinds of things and do all this kind of stuff. Next up, I wanted to point out two things that I did kind of widen this area, and now we have this chain that it's a trap door kind of thing, and I think when something rolls along, it'll knock the trap door down. I didn't quite see them show that, but that's what I believe is supposed to happen here. But they did show that the steps are much bigger, so you can actually put a figure on it. And then we're here in a second going to see a comparison between the two. We're going to see a comparison between the vintage and the modern, how you can see the steps are much bigger and wider. There's less of them, but it's more functional, and it makes a lot more sense. So here we go with looking at the tower side by side, and on the left is the vintage one. You see a lot more steps going up, swirling around, and they're much smaller. But on the right, you see the modern one, less steps, but bigger, and you can pose figures on it. It makes a lot more sense, and it's more functional, and it works better. And so here's the thing, to each is their own. The vintage one is still always going to have its charm. The vintage one is still always going to command a higher price point because it's vintage than the modern one. So don't fool yourself thinking that I'm buying this and this is going to be worth more than the vintage. No, it's not really going to be worth more than the vintage, but it will be more functional, and it will be better in certain aspects, because we've had 40 years to think about how to revise this, how to fix this, and a lot of these people working on this either didn't have it and wanted it, or always knew about it and always had some sort of thought in the back of their mind about this, and now have the opportunity to make it better. The Snake Tower, what they call the Snake Tower, it is different. It is improved. If you look at the vintage one, they said theirs was complete, and I don't see any chains on it. I mean, I'm not hating on them at all, because truthfully, if they didn't make this and I was going to get a vintage one, my vintage one would probably end up looking a lot like theirs, missing some parts. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie at all. I wasn't gonna go deep, like $4,000 on it. But anyway, looking at these, I actually like the vintage Snakehead better. I hate to admit that, but the vintage Snakehead, I like the red of it. I like the smooth look, and just kind of like that's my preference in aesthetic. But they made it more scaly and look more realistic, which it's a choice that they made. It's an aesthetic choice that they made. Also, I do think that the vintage, like the lower gold part on the neck, looks a little bit more premium and shinier silver gold than what looks like just cheap gold coloring to the lower part of the neck where the chains connect on the new one. And the new one has some articulation, the jaw opens, it snaps down, all that kind of stuff. The new one does look good. I think in this case, this is one of the several points that the vintage one wins in my book, just purely through aesthetic. It looks cool, but it looks like a lot of fun though, and some cool play features. They got to integrate the play features in these so we can play with them with our kids. Next up, they did talk about these flags. They are cloth flags, and so with that, that's a point that probably was touched on in the past. Well, it was, but I don't think I really talked about it too much. But it makes it more premium than like having paper stickers and that kind of stuff, like in the vintage with the Castle Grayskull and the paper stickers and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's good that they upgraded to these excellent flags. Next up, I do want to show the side-by-side on this. Now, they're showing the new playset versus the vintage playset in the drawbridge kind of thing, how much bigger it is overall, and just showing that it's higher up. The top of this cage piece is higher up, but a figure doesn't just fit through it like without clearing. You gotta kind of move him in there. He'll stand inside, but his head's gonna still be a little bit taller than the top of it. It's kind of one of those things. If you're going from 5.5 inch to 7 inch, you're not upping everything by 2 inches. You're upping it by maybe 1 inch, so there's a ½ inch off. That's kind of the whole point to it. Here's the back of it, which it was just bare. Now they added an extra door, is my understanding to this. And that looks pretty good. I like how they enhance things. That's what works. And showing versus... Now, see, this wasn't a good comparison because I think this is from different angles, but I might be wrong. No, I'm not wrong. This is the different side of it. So, kind of a waste of a picture in my opinion. And moving into... You get so much more going on up here in this trading area. Now, this shows where theirs is incomplete in my opinion. Maybe they just didn't have it in there for whatever reason, but why would they show these as comparisons without having the vintage one as complete as possible? But they said the weapon rack on the vintage one was not a very good weapon rack, so they upgraded and enhanced the weapon rack, so it really encompasses the whole area, and you can put a lot of stuff in there. So that's pretty cool. And then getting into this, I'm not sure what that picture is all about. We are getting into the elevator. And so I think the elevators operate pretty much the same, but one of the points is showing that when you look at what the elevator's attached to, then you see that's an upgraded area. That whole post that the elevator goes up and down has a lot more detail. Looks a lot more like it makes sense in Eternia than just some sort of a kind of a tan-colored beam. So one thing they wanted to show is that KECLAR doesn't have a removable helmet. He's bald underneath there. That's what he looks like. So that was kind of cool to get to see, like a little nugget that we haven't seen yet. I haven't seen KECLAR without his helmet on yet, and we could see that beard on him. They did say once it's funded and all that kind of stuff, we could see more elders in different colors in the future, which I expected and I would love. I actually think this is the coolest looking figure in the Motu line, hands down. This is kind of showing what it would look like if you put the He-Man in there side by side with this. So as you can see, his head is about a half an inch too tall to just walk through it, but plenty of headspace if he just stands in there, or any of the figures for the most part. So that's good to show that it does work for both scales, but it's a bit of a stretch for Masterverse. Just a bit of imagination need to be used in there. But for the most part, you could display Masterverse with these two. Alright, now quickly into my display space. I've only got a year and a half to work on this, so I got to get quickly working on this. So I was going to get one large sheet of plywood. Well, it's actually kind of smartboard, and I was going to go with 3/4 inch, or they called it something like 30 seconds something. I don't know. There's a lot of different measurements that they use for this, but I think anything above ½ inch should be solid enough to hold this. And so what I did is I got, this is about 3/4 inch, but they're sheets. They are 12 inch by 6 foot sheets, and they were $8 each. And then I cut each one to fit. And I'll go deeper into this. I'll probably do a video down the road. But I cut out a template of cardboard and used it kind of exactly the way that granite people do their templates, with strips of adhesive plastic kind of stuff. But I did that with cardboard and taped it together and made my template. And then I put it in here, and I put some, bolted it together with these things. It's sitting on top of a desk for the most part. And so it's 36 by, I think, 64 inch. So it's going to fit everything. I'm also going to put a snake mountain back there and all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of fun. Just to work. I got to get the artwork going. I got to decorate this area and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, I've got a year and a half, so I'm running out of time. So yeah, they did the measurements and the dimensions and all this, and as I was, like, some of them are 11 deep, some of them are 17 or 18 inch deep. I'm like, yeah, I've definitely got enough space. But if you look what they did during this, if you look at that main display, they have sort of a lazy Susan to move it around. I want to copy that idea because that's actually an idea I had, but the way they did it might be better than the way I was planning on doing it. But we'll find out in the future. And when I have it, between now and then, I'll have to get that lazy Susan idea together and working on that. But what do you think about this update? Are you in on this Eternia? Are you in on anything else out there? Are you excited for it? Are you passing on it? Are you having fun on the sidelines? Are you one of those that say that it's still way too expensive and just go buy a $4,000 vintage one? I mean, because there are people out there saying $550 is way too much. You need to spend $4,000. So let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Titanium Hanger out.
Huge playset. So do you have any advice or suggestions for collectors on how to display this?
Admittedly, it is a large playset, but it needs to be for all the reasons that Rob went into about how important this is and from a lore perspective. You know, it is about 4 feet wide, about 3 feet tall, and 2 feet deep, and it is a large playset. But we did think about how collectors and fans might want to display something like this. And yeah, certainly you can keep it all together, but you can separate the towers and put them on different surfaces or in different rooms, or you can rotate your collection out as you please. And we did lean into that a little bit and thinking about how we approach the monorail. And so there's some modularity there, and that you can reconfigure the monorail. So if you were to display Eternia by itself, you can have the monorail circle just the Eternia playset.
Visor here, but on top of that, we get some... sorry,
I was going to say, bring it. It's fun. Yeah.
Now we have firing projectiles and attack the sky cage or other vehicles that are going by.
That's awesome and very, very terrifying. I kind of want to, if it's okay. I kind of want to make that go around and just see if I can get it. Yes, love it.
And we're closing in on 10,000, which will unlock KECLAR.
Ooh, yeah, so we've got all three of them here. Absolutely love it. I have so many questions about KECLAR. This is KECLAR right here, folks, if you have not seen KECLAR. But that's what we're shooting for with 10,000 units, you said?
Exactly.
During the stream. And I think now is a great time to do that fun announcement. Damon? What's the big announcement?
Some big news. We have made the decision that if we do meet that 10,000 backer threshold, that we will also include King Grayskull with every purchase. That we will also include King Grayskull.